we have a brain too. And it's that one that people are like, oh, that's right. I have a brain and I get dysregulated. And it's all of a sudden this empathy opening that creates a different space. So establishing this, as silly as it seems, means that later on, this becomes a quick way to check in with the team. Hey, how are we feeling? Are we here? Are we here? How are we? What's going on? And it becomes a way to kind of quickly check in to see where people's brains are, and how people are feeling, so that you'll know, okay, we need to take a break, or hey, we need to, do some grounding exercises or revisit some self-regulation pieces. Um, and so that's that component. So trauma responses. Wanted to talk just for a minute about this. We all have different trauma responses, and they typically are kind of in these four areas. So fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. You all probably heard of these. Kind of the classic is you're walking in the woods and a bear pops out. Like, what do you do? Do you fight it? Do you run away? We have evolved our thinking around this, but typically most of us have one common way that we respond, and that is kind of considered our kind of go-to trauma response. It's very typical to get, especially with this audience that we have, like who we are, as adults who are professionals working in school mental health. That often means that many of us, who might have, or other folks who might have kind of gone in this direction, early on, we end up learning not to fight as much. And so often the friends who really can't get past the fighting, especially the really overt, loud, aggressive, kind of dangerous fighting. So those folks often don't end up kind of where we are now. And then certainly flight. So these are the elopers in an elementary, middle school. These are often the young people who flight are often the young people who don't make it to school at all. So attendance issues often can be related to kind of a flight trauma response. And then freeze and fawn. So especially among adult professionals, we see a lot of freezing and fawning. Freezing being that it's the same thing as when I'm running away or fighting. My brain is not working in the same way, but I'm frozen and I can't move. And then this new one, which is a little controversial, but this idea of fawning, which is really the people pleasing, really looking at a situation and trying to figure out what you have to do to be able to do what you're supposed to do based on what other people are expecting of you. So this is really interesting that we have a really clear balance here. It would be the kind of thing that this information would help me if we were doing, this with a whole district and we got this kind of anonymous information. If all of a sudden I see that, wow, 3/4 of the people in the audience are fighters, or actually even more, if everybody really is gravitating towards freeze, then that would be when I would probably pretty quickly try to push pause, and I would get people to stand up and just move their body around, to kind of get unstuck. I might do some quick things to see, like, where are people's cognitive abilities in terms of, just basic recall kinds of components. Those are all ways that this kind of information can be used. So again, just something to consider. Humans are going to human, checking and just appreciating that when we talk about trauma, that's really heavy. And so we want to make sure we're, front loading all kinds of activities to help people stay present and learning. Because again, when we are in any of these really, significant trauma responses, our brains just aren't working. So it's not an I won't brain, it's an I can't brain, and things just won't stick. And so that leads to a lot of wasted time with PD that nothing's sticking. And so just kind of from a basic let's be effective and quality improvement, this can be a helpful way to maybe kind of think about that.